Hello everybody, a quick update on my increased understanding of how this action fits together. I was wrong in some of my assumptions in my previous video. I took the trigger and trigger guard assembly out of the wood and placed them in here, and I now understand how they work. It goes like that. With the action and the plastic of the trigger guard probably intended to be touching, or if not touching, just this tiniest gap. And this trigger, the sear release lever arm here, it touches, I just couldn't see this when it was assembled, so I didn't understand what was going on, but it touches a roller right there on the back side of that roller. And then this over travel adjustment screw, I misunderstood how that works. It hits a steel rod right there. Here, let me move that for you, like that. So that's what's going on. So once I understood how this was supposed to fit, because I thought it was missing by a mile yesterday, but I was incorrect. So put this back together again, and whoops, let me put the trigger in here first. So the upshot is not that I doubted the client, I just had to come to the understanding on my own, or else I wouldn't know what the heck I was doing. But as the client reported, the action is basically not into the wood. Well, let me say it differently. The wood's not tall enough, because where I thought that maybe the action wasn't inletted all the way, it is, because the contact point of that roller and the sear release lever arm looks appropriate. And I believe that I am just in contact with the plastic. If I move these up and down, I think there might just be barely contact. So I think that's all good, and we can see here how short the top of the forearm is. And then down here, if I sight along the bottom of the cocking lever and line it up visually so that it's parallel with the top of the forearm of the wood, I have to raise the barrel up out of the wood a fair distance, quite a bit. So it could be that this is not only short, but short on an angle, but I think it's probably just short. So, which is what the client reported, and he's correct. And again, not that I doubted, I just had to come to my own understanding of what's going on. So now I think the course of action would be to either turn this into a master, and I'll fill this up with Bondo and bed the action into the Bondo so that we get the height right of the action into the wood, and then we got to build up the forearm, and I would do that with a sheet of melamine with plastic packing tape, and put a Bondo on there and squish this down onto a couple of shims of the right thickness. It looks like about an 1/8 inch. And then let it cure, and then sand it flush, and that would be a master. But it could be, if we want to try to turn this into a shooter, I could go ahead and do that with thickened epoxy bedding compound, and I could color it, say black, and turn this 1/8 inch line across the top of the forearm into a feature. Could color it brown and sort of, you know, try to match the color of the wood and make it not so visually intrusive. But I think because the action and the trigger assembly's relationship is correct, we could just turn it into a shooter. But it would be nice to carve it into a pretty piece of wood just as well. And so it'd be a little bit costly to do it out of epoxy, even though we might end up just turning it into a master. So I'll get the client's input on what he tends to lean towards. But it's not a huge amount of epoxy. The cost is silly to even consider. Alright, well, that's it for this time. I'll check back in as we are mixing goo.